You ever stop to think about what really keeps our industrial world from just grinding to a halt? Well, today we're pulling back the curtain on a process that's totally hidden but absolutely essential for everything from power plants to manufacturing. We're talking about industrial acid cleaning. Yeah, we're going to get into the science behind a truly deep clean.
All right, let's get right into it. Deep inside this massive, sprawling network of pipes, tanks, and boilers that, power our entire world, there's a silent threat, and it's growing. It's literally clogging our industrial arteries. It chokes efficiency, wastes incredible amounts of energy, and honestly, it's setting the stage for some potentially catastrophic failures.
So that leads to a pretty fascinating question, right? When a piece of equipment that's, absolutely critical gets clogged up, you can't just swap it out. I mean, we're talking about massive infrastructure here. So how in the world do you perform surgery on a pipeline? How do you clear out a blockage that you can't even see?
Well, to answer that, we first have to meet the villain of our story.
And that villain, it's called mineral scale. Now, the absolute best way to think about this stuff is like industrial cholesterol. Seriously, it's this hard, crusty deposit of minerals, things like calcium carbonate, that just builds up and builds up over time. It narrows pipes, it blocks heat from getting where it needs to go, and it basically just slowly strangles the performance of all this essential equipment.
So, okay, if scale is the big problem, what's the solution? Turns out every good story needs a hero. And for this job, we've got a whole toolkit of them, a variety of really powerful assets.
But here's the thing, not all acids are created equal. This isn't about just throwing the strongest thing you have at the problem. No, it's about precision. It's more like surgery. So for some really tough rust and calcium scale, you might bring out the big guns, like hydrochloric acid. But for a safer, crystalline option, you've got sulfuric acid. And hey, if you're dealing with more sensitive metals, you need a gentler touch, right? That's where something like citric acid is perfect. It's all about choosing the exact right chemical tool for the job.
But how does that actually work? I mean, how exactly does a liquid dissolve a solid that's basically as hard as a rock? Let's get into the cool chemistry behind all this.
It's actually a beautifully simple four-step chemical dance. It's really cool. So first, the acid comes into contact with that solid scale. Then boom, a chemical reaction kicks off immediately. This reaction literally transforms that stubborn solid scale into a totally different substance, a soluble salt. And once it's soluble, meaning it can dissolve in water, it's super easy to just flush away, leaving the pipe totally clean.
So this is the really crucial point. You're not just, scraping or chipping away at the problem. You are chemically transforming it. You're taking a solid, immovable problem and turning it into a liquid, totally manageable solution. It's genius, really.
Okay, but wait a minute. Using all these powerful acids on metal equipment, that raises a pretty big and very important question. How do you clean the gunk off without completely destroying the equipment itself?
Exactly, right? I mean, if this stuff is strong enough to dissolve mineral scale, isn't it going to eat right through the metal pipes too? And that is a totally valid concern. The last thing you want is to solve a clogging problem only to create a massive corrosion problem.
And the answer, the secret weapon, lies in these amazing little additives called acid inhibitors. Seriously, you can think of them like tiny chemical force fields. When they're added to the acid solution, they create a protective layer on the base metal of the pipe or the tank, shielding it from the acid's attack. This lets the acid focus all of its power on dissolving the scale, leaving the actual equipment totally untouched. It's brilliant.
Okay, so we've got the problem, we've got the chemical toolkit, and we've got the secret sauce to keep everything safe. So how does this all come together in the real world? Let's take a look at how the pros actually put this acid to work.
Well, the pros have a few different tricks up their sleeves, and it all depends on the job. For something like a pipeline, they'll probably use circulation to keep that acid solution moving and working. For a big tank, maybe they'll just fill it up and let it soak for a while. And for really large surfaces, spraying or even using a special acid-infused foam could be the way to go. And I have to say this, and it's really important, this is not a DIY project. No way. The complexity, the potential hazards, it all means this work is handled by specialized services. These are the folks who have the right gear, the deep chemical expertise, and all the safety protocols to manage these projects safely and effectively from start to finish.
Because safety, it is absolutely paramount. We're talking the whole 9 yards. Full personal protective equipment, or PPE, detailed emergency response plans ready for any contingency, and super strict procedures for neutralizing the acid and managing the waste when the job is done. Protecting people and the environment, that is always priority number one.
And this quote right here, it really just sums up the level of expertise we're talking about. It says, the selection of appropriate inhibitors depends on the acid type, base metal, temperature, and expected contact time. See? It's a real science. Every single one of those factors has to be carefully calculated to get a perfect and safe result.
So that brings us to one last thought to chew on. We've seen how this incredible kind of hidden process keeps our current world running smoothly. But what about the future? As our infrastructure gets more and more complex, more sensitive, what will the future of industrial cleaning even look like? What new challenges and new solutions are just over the horizon? It's definitely something to think about.